Vic Michaelis from Dropout TV wants to get rid of dice in tabletop RPGs.
Get rid of the dice.
No dice? Well, that's perfectly understandable coming from Vic. Obviously, Vic has been involved in some very interesting new improv shows on Dropout. Dropout itself, some of the new media stuff that I assumed would start happening in 2014. So it's perfectly understandable. Nobody's going to watch the video if I take this tone, though. Just give me 1 second here.
Get rid of the dice.
No dice! Here are my dice. Hollywood cesspool. You can take my dice from my cold, dead hands!
I don't want to go into this closet. This is just not cleaned out at all. But videos have to have interesting visuals nowadays. So, this is... Oh my god! I can't even get the door open. Alright, well... Oh, jeez, I need to clean this out one of these days. There it is. Okay. Just I stuck it right at the top. There it is. Everway. Visionary role-playing. So bear with me for a second. Why am I talking about this random tabletop game? Because Everway is a game that uses visual randomizers. The tarot card type things. Those are used to determine the results of character actions as interpreted by a game master. Everway is a diceless game. I think it might be one of the few diceless games that I have that actually came with like a full set and everything. But it's certainly not the only one in existence. There's been many diceless games over the year. Everway had its silver anniversary a couple years back and released a new 2-volume set of the game, and you probably have never heard about it. In fact, I'm pretty sure, even though the game came out in 1995, re-released just a couple years ago, I'm pretty sure probably like 99% of the people who were watching this video have never heard about it. And that's because it just wasn't very successful. Here's a quote. "It was another step in the branch of storytelling games which placed story first before game or character. However, the free-form system required a very good game master, and not everybody was a Jonathan Tweet." So yeah, no dice. And the game sold very few copies compared to what Wizards of the Coast printed. Many of the copies that did sell were just because distributors bought the game so they could stay in the good graces of Magic the Gathering. And those copies of Everway were just remaindered before they even hit a shelf. Discussing Everway, or diceless games in general, requires a much more in-depth video that I don't have the time right now. But the frustrating thing is that the existence of these games prove two things at the same time. That diceless, free-form improv games do have had an audience and have had an audience for a very long time. But that audience is going to be pretty damn small. This board game from my closet is physical proof from the past that we have already had this discussion regarding getting rid of the dice. And we keep having it again and again and again. For another perspective, let's take a look at the Dragon magazine from October of 1985, and an article written by some guy named Gary Gygax. In it, he talks about the challenges of balancing out roleplay and mechanics. Now, he does use some interesting wording here. I think he invented the idea of role assumption. So he's kind of just talking about really what is the difference between long-form improv and standard improv. You know, you have a character, so you can just do role assumption and assume what the character is going to do, and thus keep things moving quickly. He also talks about organized play, and in the issue of competitive things where tournaments and stuff, where you really just have to rely on better communication to make people understand what sort of game they are going to be playing at an organized event like that, which again is the same conversation about communication that we repeatedly have online to this day. This is the section that I think is something I want to end on. From the article, balanced games are certainly the most enjoyable sort for the great majority of players. A meal does not consist of but one thing if it is to be an enjoyable one. By that same token, a role-playing game must have all the ingredients which allow it to be varied and enjoyable. Playing, an assumption of roles, interpersonal dealings, action, problem-solving, excitement, suspense, and questing are all important to make the whole. The portions can be mixed in different amounts, but each should have a degree of existence within the scope of the whole. And around 40 years later, I feel the exact same way. A balanced game is going to be the one that is enjoyed by the vast majority of people. Unless you are dealing with a very specific subsect of people, unless you know your players very well. Overall, for everybody around the table, everybody, players and game master alike, a balanced game is going to be the most fun. Sometimes people enjoy a specific aspect of the hobby so much that they get tunnel vision. I have seen people try to play D&D as if it was a war game. And I never understood that. We already have war games. And I've seen people try to play D&D as if it was an improv game, which doesn't make any sense because we already have improv games. I feel like both sets of rules, improv and game mechanics, are both important and require players and game masters to be on board, but they require much less than a highly focused specific game that focuses either on mechanics or on improv. If your idea in a game would make sense given the scenario and the player character, then the game master probably shouldn't ask for a roll. Or maybe in a 5e game, the DM would ask for a roll, but tell the player their plan is going to succeed regardless, but they want to know the degree of success. Which in some cases, some games have whole systems that's codified for that purpose. I've seen both players and DMs try to just make things up whole cloth in regards to both mechanics and improv, ignoring the basic ideas of improv and ignoring what is a group mechanic. It's frustrating. And I think in a balanced game, most people around that table are going to have the tools that they need to have a fun time, even if one person is focused way more on the mechanic side and another person is focused way more on the narrative side. That's just what I've experienced. If there's a better way to do it, then I am more than willing to hear you out. Let me know in the comments below if you've run into a situation where I'm, where I don't know what I'm talking about and specific narrow focus games are actually the best. I think maybe sure, but I've hardly ever encountered a full table of people where every single person at that table was on board. Now, I'm specifically talking about sitting around a tabletop board game table. Now, obviously, I've been in improv scenarios where you're at an improv jam or improv class, in which case, and of course, in many of those cases, everyone is on board for that improv. Though you would be surprised how many people can't handle a narrative thing when they're at an improv jam. Super interesting that even in that setting, you sometimes need simplified, codified rules in order for everybody to have a good time. That's interesting, isn't it? And I truly believe that dice are the most versatile, unobtrusive manner in which to insert mechanics into a role-playing tabletop game where there's kind of a shared narrative. That's just my perspective. If you have a different perspective, let me know in the comments below.